Now then, folks, I've just given you a little bit of audio there from that tape and just come out of light a bit. And please don't go off the sound quality. Remember, what's important about any tape deck is the tape deck that it were made on, in the sense that you think about the recording that you're about to hear is 45 years old, and this is a recording off a recording, if you know what I mean. Anyway, on this video I'm going to try and explain to you, first of all, how I got the recordings of Chipman, and what I believe Chipman's about. I named him Chipman, by the way. This was me. I named him Chipman by the first video that you see there, i.e. my Old Pal Chipman. And I obviously called him Chipman through to what he says in the video, you see. But anyway, what happened was, a very good friend of mine, Whiskey Alpha 1, who's no longer with us, a radio enthusiast, also wrapped up with hi-fi as well. His sons used to operate a second-handed shop that were quite popular in West Yorkshire, and he used to come across loads of different things, you know, and he were always looking for stuff. He knew what his father wanted, his son knew what his father were after: valve, hi-fi, audio, reel-to-reel related, DAT, you know, any HF radio that were, you know, something worth having, whatever, not them, but, you know, something, you know, he were a radio man through and through with George. And anyway, his son came across 10 reel-to-reel tapes, not 10.5 inch. There were, if I remember rightly, I think there were 7.5. There might have been 10 inch. There might have been, sorry, 7 inch or 8.25 inch, i.e. photograph type reels. I can't remember, but they weren't very big. They were all in 3 3/4 inch per second, and they were all around 1970, and they're all one man who never introduces himself on any one of the 10 tapes. He always refers to the beginning of the tapes, just like you hear in My Old Pal Chipman. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Never says who he is, never says what he's doing it for, never says anything. It's just hello, ladies and gentlemen. Now, from what we can make out, I got one of the tapes. I just got one of the tapes. Now George has died. I don't know what's happened to the other 9. But I can bet you they would have been very interesting. And now then, what you're listening to, right, is, in reality, you're hearing cut-up versions. But in reality, what's actually happening on every one of the 10 tapes is... this fella is a radio enthusiast. He's exactly, in my opinion, he's nearly identical to my father. My father were wrapped up with radio, but my dad had no interest in talking back to the people. He were only interested in listening to amateur radio with my father, as well as shortwave listening of broadcast radio stations anywhere on the medium, long, short, anywhere. Right, it don't matter whether it be pirate or original, whatever. It don't matter what country it were from, what it were playing or anything. If it were on 3 watts, my father would try and pull it out. I'm telling you, my dad were what we call a shortwave radio DXer. There's millions of them. There used to be loads of them in early days of amateur radio. And what you're listening to there, folks, is a recording that come, like I say, and that is exactly what you're listening to. He is a shortwave listener. He listens to radio stations all over the world. He makes a planned action to come on that day to listen to that very station on that very frequency. He's one of them, if you know what I mean. So you'll hear, in reality, on the tape, you hear a piece. He'll say, I'm going to go listen today to Radio Moscow because they're talking about their space exploration, you know, experiments and stuff. Remember, this is 1970s. So he says, very communist, I'd like to go listen to those. I'll record all that. And you ought to hear the bias that they say about us in the West. So he said, I'll record it. He's right, interesting. So, and he'll set a stage to record it. So you'll hear the whole programme, and then you hear him always talking about the subject afterwards. So it doesn't matter what programme we recorded, what radio station, he'll record the whole programme and then he'll talk about the subject straight afterwards. And that's what Chipman were about. He were a radio shortwave DXer. He'd record his programme on reel to reel, which were a big thing in 1970, and FM tuners were a big thing in 1970. This fella must have had some money, I'll tell you. And that's what he did. But what we've captured here is only the talking parts, okay? You know, so you'll hear a bit of music or whatever from the 1970 radio station or whatever he's listening to, and then it'll just be talking. Because it were only the talking I'm really wrapped up with. But that's all it is, folks. I'm going to give you it. Here's Chipman, and in this video he talks about the stars and the planets. What the fish and chips was wrapped up in. If you want more, go look at my Old Pal Chipman, but this is version 2. I'm sorry for going on, but by the way, if anyone in the Oakwood area of Leeds, West Yorkshire, recognises this fella, remember this is 45 years old. He's well not with us now, well, that's a fact, obviously. He sounds to us we'd say about Special Agent reckons that his whole life were wrapped up with radio. Well, I agree with you, Special Agent, and we think, and me and George Whiskey Alpha 1 and everybody that's heard it, we believe he's about 65, possibly 70, lives on his own. Hence the warming up the fish and chips for 27 days. I mean, imagine going to his house, folks. Imagine going to his house on day 3, visiting Chipman on day 3, and he says, "Now then, sit yourself down, I've got some fish and chips for you and something to drink afterwards." Imagine that. Imagine how fast would you be gone? I'm not hanging around for dinner, Chipman. I'm not hanging around for dinner. I'll get you in a bit, old pal. See ya.
For the past 45 minutes, this has been Music with Love, with songs from Friday Byrne and today's star guest, Roger Whittaker, and the orchestra of Jeff Love, who, along with producer Brian Willey and me, Colin Nichol, invite you to join him next week when, again, it will be Music with Love.
Oh, the BBC's made a change again, another new programme. Oh, we'll have to investigate this next week, won't we, ladies and gentlemen? This is lovely. Marvellous. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the evening of Friday, 9th of October, 1970. Been a very pleasant day as regards weather, etc. And the time is approaching 7 p.m. But before getting down to business with the evening's programmes, just a comment from me about Radio Sofia, Bulgaria, and Radio Moscow, particularly Radio Moscow. I might mention here that of all the East European countries, Bulgaria is the most closely in line with Soviet socialist communist policy. Now, for some time, Radio Moscow has been talking very proudly of their recent space achievement, and it really was a very considerable achievement. They managed to scoop up some specimens from the moon without the help of human beings, except ground control down in the Soviet Union, of course. And they think that is a superior achievement to the American astronauts Neil Armstrong and his companions, and also the following moon flight of space exploration in America. Well, my opinion is that, I'm not an expert of course, but it seems to me that however clever the Russian electronic and mechanical means of scooping up rock specimens on the moon may be, how does the equipment select the specimens on the moon to bring back to Earth? I fail to see how all that equipment can select the best specimens and reject the bad ones, whereas if a human being is on the surface of the moon, he can select the specimens he wishes to bring back to Earth. He may not select the best ones, even then. But seeing is believing, you know, and he can actually see the specimens, the various rocks and things lying about on the moon's surface, and that seems to me rather a better proposition than leaving it for mechanical and electronic means. However, it just shows the difference in technique between the Soviet Union and the United States. Certainly a magnificent achievement for both countries. I think all the recent space flights of the last few years particularly, both American and Russian. Now, when I'm the program which I am been listening to is very near to the American Voice of America breakfast show, both on the 31 meter band. But I've been neglecting the Voice of America breakfast show in the last few days, and I shall have to discontinue that because the Americans are due to send up their next space flight during this month, and it is already the 9th of October now, so I better not waste too much time listening to Moscow and Sofia, Bulgaria. Now, regarding Radio Sofia, it seems to share the same wavelength with Radio Moscow, and it gives a beautiful Radio Sofia, Bulgaria really does give a beautiful, clear transmission, and very loud at times. I'd like to make a recording of it, but the being communist, you know, their news bulletin is rather biased against the capitalists and so on, and Moscow is even worse, and Moscow is more long-winded about it. But during the night, Moscow does put on some music and folk singing, which may come from any of the 15 republics in Asia, either Asia or Europe, European Russia, Asiatic Russia or European Russia, and very fine it is too. And Bulgaria has folk music as well. If it goes on for too long a time, it can become rather boring. But if you have never heard Balkan music, I'll have to get around to recording some. The little country of Albania also has mountain music, Montenegro and Serbia. Yugoslavia, I've not listened very often to Yugoslavia. They have a type of mountain folk music as well. I'll have to get around to trying to record some of these programs for you. But as I say, in the case of this combined frequency of Bulgaria and Soviet Union, it goes on all through the night from about 11 p.m. right through until 5 p.m. in the morning, and then it turns on to Spanish language for about quarter of an hour, half an hour or something, and then after that there's commercial point-to-point stations come in, and telephone stations such as Norddeutsch in Germany, and you can actually hear on that station, you can actually hear telephone conversations between wives at home and their husbands out at sea. It's for the maritime bands. That can be rather interesting. Germans speaking in English very often. Anyway, I have to get around to that type of tape recordings later. And right now it's 6 minutes past 7. I'm late. Dear, that's what we're talking. I must press the little red switch in the mains lead and the FM switch, VHF switch on the Philips radio receiver, and just... Yes, I've already started. Well, we'll forgive you if next week is as good as this week. What do you say, ladies and gentlemen?
It's 9:15.
Yes, we'll forgive the BBC, won't we? On condition that next week is as good as this one. And this one has been very nice, hasn't it? The tail end of the Music is Love programme with Jeff Love had a very pleasant sound about it, I think. Rather like Frank Chatsfield, which is an orchestra I don't think I have ever recorded, unfortunately. Both are rather similar to Mantovani Orchestra, before the days of tape recording. Regarding the Organist Entertains programme, we say goodbye to Chris Organ Morgan, but we never hear him on the show. He must be the producer, I think. Perhaps. I wonder if he is. We hear Robin Richmond instead. Here's the one we usually hear. It was surprising to hear that the Granada tooting, which we hear often, came originally from Sacramento, California. Sacramento seems to have a Spanish sound about it, I think. The ladies were very talented, weren't they? The one accompanied by her husband, and even more impressive, Exodus, played by the two sisters, one on the organ, the other on the piano. On Sunday evenings, Alan Keith, in his Your 100 Best Tunes, has given us an orchestral version of this very noble sound on several occasions. The organ in Melbourne was a surprise. A very fine tune it was too. I believe Robin Richmond told us that it was the organ was transferred from the Dendy Cinema or Theatre to the Capitol Cinema. That lovely old German tune, Moonlight on the Ulster, is always nice to hear, isn't it? Really nice, whether played on an orchestra or on an organ. It was sad to hear that George Wright's studio organ, in America I believe, was destroyed by fire. Bad enough to move from one place to another and be rebuilt, etc. But to be destroyed utterly was terrible. There's nothing we can do about it. There's not too many Wurlitzer organs about in the world, though, that's the trouble. Unfortunately. We don't like to hear about these things, do we? Anyway, as Robin Richmond said, we still have the sound on the recordings. But all that workmanship that goes into an organ, you know, building it and tuning it and assembling it, all destroyed. Terrible shame, isn't it? Anyway, I don't think there's any further remarks about the programmes this evening. I might think of something later on. That's quite possible. I promised to read to you the information all about the stars, and I'm looking at the chart now. It's in the form of a globe, a circle, very impressive, 4.5 inches diameter, absolutely jet black, with numerous constellations with all the names, and the Milky Way stretches from left to right, or right to left, across the centre. But the celestial equator is shown by a dotted line down below in a semicircle. Makes the lowest portion of all look like a crescent. Of course, we're further north than the equator here, aren't we? In Britain, that's probably the reason why. It looks very impressive anyway. And this is a double sheet taken from the Daily Telegraph, dated Thursday, 1st of October 1970, in which I brought the fish and chips home this evening. So evidently the Daily Telegraph published one of these articles on the 1st of each month, so that is something to look forward to. And the heading is October Night Sky. And this black circle, this black globe, it has a northern horizon at the top, eastern horizon on the left, mark you, not the west, in the west on an ordinary map, but the eastern horizon is shown on the left, and western horizon is shown on the right. Rather strange. Southern horizon is shown at the bottom. So there's an explanation of the chart is given here. The chart shows the aspect of the sky as seen from the British Isles at midnight at the beginning of the month, 11 p.m. in the middle, and 10 p.m. at the end of the month, I suppose it means. For other countries in the same latitude as Britain, it will be correct at their corresponding local times. If the places of the stars are required earlier in the evening, they can be obtained from previous charts by subtracting 2 hours for each month that has elapsed since publication. For example, the appearance of the sky at 10 p.m. at the beginning of October is identical, except for the movement of the moon and planets, with that at the beginning of September at midnight. To use the chart, hold it vertically with eastern horizon at the bottom while facing east, and with southern horizon at the bottom while facing south, etc. The rippled area represents the Milky Way. All times given are British Standard Time. Readers are recommended to keep these notes for reference. I certainly will do that. So I suppose that means when you're looking through the window or even outside, but a dark sky, you can't you would need a torch to look at this planet, well, it looks like a planet or with moons and things on, craters, etc. Anyway, this is the text of the article, and it gives details of 3 planets to begin with. The first one is Mercury, and this is what it says. Mercury is visible about half an hour before sunrise during the first few days of the month. At 6:15 a.m. on the 3rd, it will be 7 degrees high, due east, and at magnitude -0.7, it should be seen without difficulty. On the 27th, it comes into superior conjunction, when it will be 100 million miles from the Earth on the far side of the Sun. Well, the Sun is 92 million miles from the Earth, so Mercury is not very far on the other side of the Sun, is it? It'll be burning hot on the side of Mercury facing the Sun. probably cold on the reverse side. Now Venus sinks to 25 degrees below the celestial equator by mid-October, setting only 15 minutes after the Sun, and is unlikely to be seen after the first week, even though it reaches its greatest brilliancy at magnitude minus 4.3 on the 6th. At 6:30 p.m. on the 3rd, it will be 4 degrees high, due southwest, 5 degrees to the left of the 3-day-old thin crescent moon, and 40 million miles from the Earth. Mars is coming very slowly nearer the Earth, being 232 million miles distant on the 18th. It is still only magnitude 2, moving from Leo into Virgo, those are the constellations, on the 9th, and rising at about 5 a.m. throughout the month. At 6:15 a.m. on the 16th, an hour before sunrise, it will be 10 degrees high and 10 degrees to the south of east, faint in the lightening sky. Jupiter is drawing close to the Sun, and having a declination of 14 degrees south, it is not easily seen this month. During the first week it sets about 3/4 of an hour after the Sun. At 6:15 p.m. on the 15th, 10 minutes after sunset, it is only 4 degrees high, west of southwest, magnitude minus 1.3, and 590 million miles from the Earth. Saturn retrogrades very slowly westwards in the constellation Aries, A-R-I-E-S, and is 10 degrees high, north of east at 9 p.m. at the beginning of the month, much brighter at magnitude 0.1 than any nearby stars. At 2:30 a.m. on the 17th, it will be 54 degrees high, due south, 7 degrees below the waning moon, and 767 million miles from the Earth. That is 68.5 light minutes. Ah, light minutes, that's a change from light years, isn't it? 68.5 light minutes is equal to 767 million miles. Now there's something for you to work out by arithmetic. Now then it moves on to the stars. Algol will be at minimum brightness at 5:45 a.m. on the 2nd, 2:30 a.m. on the 5th, 11:20 p.m. on the 7th, 8:10 p.m. on the 10th, 4:10 p.m. on the 25th, 1 a.m. on the 27th, and 9:50 p.m. on the 30th. An unusually large number of occasions on which to observe the phenomena of this most famous of all eclipsing binary stars. Beta Lyrae, B-E-T-A-L-I-R-A-E, will be near minimum brightness on the evenings of the 6th and 19th, but requires much more careful observation than Algol. Near midnight in the middle of the month, the square of Pegasus is at its most conspicuous, being 60 degrees high in the south. The top left-hand star, Alpheratz, A-L-P-H-E-R-A-T-Z, magnitude 2.1, is now allocated to the constellation of Andromeda, and the line running through it and the lower star, Algenib, A-L-G-E-N-I-B, magnitude 2.9, passes very nearly through the vernal equinox and the point where the Sun crosses the equator on the 21st of March. The lower right-hand star is Markab, M-A-R-K-A-B, magnitude 2.6. So the astronomers have allocated Alpheratz to the constellation of Andromeda. I've noticed on some of these maps that two constellations are very close together sometimes, and on the charts that I have in the other room, blue charts, the stars of constellation are linked together by faint white lines, and sometimes one star is very, very close inside another constellation. It's rather confusing, so evidently the astronomers have found it confusing in the case of what's its name? Alpheratz. Yes, Alpheratz. Alpheratz. Now, to continue, the top right hand star, Scheat, Scheat, is an M-class red supergiant, 110 times the diameter of the Sun. My goodness. And the Sun is what, 186,000 miles across, I believe. It varies irregularly in very roughly a month, from magnitude 2.2 to 2.7, a difference in brightness of 1.5, sufficient to be detected with careful observation. For many people, the square is always completely empty, but away from city lights up to 30 stars may be seen. Doesn't say whether that's with the naked eye or with a telescope. Didn't say whether it's a small telescope or an astronomer's telescope either. Anyway, the square is indeed a very practical gauge of the seeing conditions at a given place and time. Under the exceptionally clear skies of Greece, 100 stars have been counted, presenting an aspect which prompted Shelley to write of a form of scene where musing solitude might love to lift her soul above this sphere of earthliness, where silence undisturbed might watch alone. Written by J.L.W. And a little paragraph at the bottom with 3 stars. The Daily Telegraph map of the northern sky for every night of the year is available through newsagents, price 3 and 6pence or 4 shillings post paid, from Department SN 135 Fleet Street, EC4 P 4BL. I'll read that again. EC4 P 4BL, or Withy Grove, Manchester. And that's the end of the article. Well, I hope you found that interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Any of you very good at mathematics and optics? Well, there's something for you to feast on. It's all there on the tape recorder, and you can hear it time and time again, if you haven't grasped it all on the first occasion. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to listen in on the radio to Bulgaria, Sofia, Bulgaria, Radio Moscow. I've been listening to them night after night, and they're on the air far longer than the Voice of America. But they're socialist countries, of course, you know, and you know what they're like. Enough said. But their music is very good, particularly when they get onto their folk music, their Balkan folk music. I've been contemplating making a recording sometime. I can't do it on this tape because I need this tape for other BBC programmes. But I will get around to it and let you see the difference between America and communist countries. And I cannot get it all in on one reel of tape, so I'll have to cut a lot of it out. I have to select different portions here and there. Anyway, we'll wait till these problems when they arise, and when I get another reel of tape sometime. So in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, it is bye bye for me and all the very best. I'm sorry I can't afford to record anything on the shortwaves tonight, this early morning. So bye bye for me and all the best. I'll explain it to you on another reel of tape, given the opportunity. So cheers and all the very best. I hope the analogy of a not exactly the analogy, the story of this night sky has not unduly worried you, or even bored you. I hope not. I hope you found it interesting. Anyway, cheers and all the very best. Bye bye, until next time.